I'm just curious, what kind of specific changes have you made to specific films as a result of test screenings?
You know, it's amazing because a test screening, particularly for a comedy, is essential. We take these movies out, the comedies, and test them as much as possible. You got to get it out there. You got to let an audience see it, because they'll tell you. An audience does not lie, and they tell you when it's funny and when it's not funny. And if it's dying, you know it's not working, and you go back and cut it out. So for a comedy, particularly the delivery room sequence in 9 months, we took it out and showed it to a group of people, and we had a moment in the delivery room where Robin Williams ran out of the delivery room and locked himself into a room and was threatening to commit suicide because he couldn't handle the pressure of delivering 2 babies. Hugh Grant and Tom Arnold needed to talk him out of coming out of there. It's a funny scene that lasted about 6 or 7 minutes, but the audience, oddly enough, lost interest in the scene because they were so concerned about the women. They couldn't be away from the women having the babies. They were so concerned about those characters. So what I did is I just cut the scene out of the picture, which was essential, actually. It was very important.
I've always been fascinated what happens to American films when they're released in foreign markets. I was in Germany when the Belushi film K-9 was playing, and there it was called My Partner with the Cold Nose. What kind of changes have you seen with your films when they've been released in foreign countries?
Well, they said the studio sent me a list of names for 9 months, which were like, I'm not ready to be a daddy, me a daddy, these crazy names. And I said, I can't, you know, I actually can't look at this. I said, it's better not to involve me in this stuff because I wasn't involved in Home Alone when it was called Mama, I Missed the Airplane in Italy. And I just said, you know, you guys know for some reason what works over there. I mean, it's a very bizarre sort of renaming process, but you know, it seems to work for particular countries. The funnest thing to do is to see a movie dubbed that you've done. I was obsessed by seeing Mrs. Doubtfire in any country I could get in, and the funniest was in Italy to see her dub. A lot of the places in Mrs. Doubtfire, Mrs. Doubtfire was dubbed by a woman in Italy. I think a woman's voice.
Oh.
You know, so it was interesting. It's just fascinating.
When you're shooting on location in tourist areas, and you shot on the streets of New York, on Manhattan, how do people react to Hugh Grant differently as opposed to Macaulay Culkin when they see him on the street?
Well, it's interesting because the most attention I've ever had when we were shooting on the street was on Home Alone 2, when we were shooting Macaulay after he had become a big star based on Home Alone 1, and we had busloads of kids screaming his name, Macaulay, you know, it was insane. We'd always have to stop shooting. With Hugh, it's interesting because Hugh was kind of, we were out on the streets, but it wasn't like the Beatles, which I was expecting. I always considered Hugh the 5th Beatle. He really had the charm of all the Beatles that I had seen. And, but people didn't recognize him. It was a weird thing. You don't tend to recognize Hugh. I don't know if it's because he blends in or when he wasn't shooting, he tended to wear this baseball cap that sort of really hid his features pretty well.
I love the rollerblading sequence. Just how much thought went into that beforehand? Because I walked up that hill and kind of a busy place. What kind of precautions were out of camera range on that one?
Just the rollerblading sequence was done with a stuntman, you know, and it continues. You saw a shortened version in the picture, but I did a stunt with him almost getting hit by a car and then going over a hill, and I just extended it, but it wasn't as funny as just keeping it short and sweet. The rollerblading scene is just, you know, getting permits, being able to get out there and actually shoot it, and again, storyboarding it, being extremely well prepared so you can go in, shoot it, and get out of there, because people in San Francisco don't like you to spend a lot of time shooting.
And one final question. Love the sequence in the toy store with a dinosaur-type figure that is much loved by some and much hated by others. What kind of legal tightrope did you walk with that scene?
That's a brilliant way of describing that. I wish I had that written down so I could use it in an interview. We just had to change the color of the dinosaur and make sure that the dinosaur sounded a little different. But you know, that other dinosaur that you're talking about kind of sounds like Goofy from Disney, so you know, we can always sort of bring that up. But no, for me, I love that other dinosaur, actually. My kids love the other dinosaur. I just thought it was a funny idea. The idea of a foul-mouthed children's character cracks me up. You know, you could never do it with the Disney characters, but you know, 7, you know, really cranky, dirty old men, 7 dwarfs always crack me up too. And but that is a joke we'll never ever see. So this is the closest, you know. And until I can My other dream scene in a movie is to do Forrest Gump and Nell on a blind date. And if I can do that, I'll be really happy. So I don't know what movie that'll appear in.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure.